right, the board is back in open session. Welcome, everyone. At this point, is there any public comment? If there's no public comments, then we move into the superintendent's report.
All right. And my first thing is I'm going to introduce Mr. Gatz, who has some student presenters here tonight.
And I know that all my colleagues are excited to hear what's going on in Central. That's why they all came tonight. So if Mrs. Mazza and the fifth grade students in Central could come on up here and join me. We talk all the time within the district about how we're utilizing technology and what the students do and how they can demonstrate their learning. So I'm going to have Mrs. Mazza explain what the students have been doing, and then we're going to have them talk a little bit about their work and then show you a little bit of their work.
Hi, thank you. I'm Mrs. Mazza. Our fifth grade students have been working very hard on their European country projects. Throughout this project, students have learned how to paraphrase appropriately, cite while acquiring information from a website. While researching, students also learn to differentiate between fact and opinion writing so that they can determine credibility among sources. Students were given their own choices in this project, from choosing the country they'd like to research to the format of their presentations, as well as a technology tool that they would like to use to demonstrate the knowledge that they've obtained. Here are some of our examples for that students use WeVideo. They are our favorites. They're very cute, and we really think it shows how students are able to use creativity while using this technology tool. Before I show the video, I'd like to have the girls come up, and maybe you guys could just share why you liked this project or why you like using WeVideo.
Hi, my name is Emma Ralph, and I liked using WeVideo because it provided a creative outlet for me to demonstrate what I had learned.
Hi, my name is Claire O'Brien. I enjoyed this project because I learned all about Scotland's history.
Hi, my name is Caroline O'Brien. I liked this project because I thought it was cool that we got to pick our country and how we were presenting.
Hi, my name is Maggie Porter, and I like this project because it allowed me to be very creative.
Hi, my name is Sophia Miller, and I really enjoyed using WeVideo, especially for this project, because it allowed me to be more unique and creative, and I feel like it really amplified my project to another level.
I will show you. This is just a quick montage of the girls' work.
I am your host, Emmanuel, but you can call me Manuel for short. Today we will be focusing on the unknown war-torn land, Bosnia and Herzegovina. My assistant, Yusuf, has bought us some exclusive airplane tickets to Bosnia, which is a smaller country, so it has a smaller population of 3.8 million. It is located in an area called the Balkans, which Yusuf said sounded very medieval. It really isn't. It's just a peninsula off the coast of Europe, extending southwest. Surrounding it. I'm back. Delicious. Now let's get back to the subject. Oh yes, of course. Our first category is food. In Scotland, some of the most popular food is Scottish salmon, fish, haggis, grouse, nut pudding, and potatoes. All of the dishes in Scotland are very hearty and meaty.
Oh yes, they are, Regina. Not to mention, people in Scotland eat a lot of sheep and game-intensive food. But if you live on the coast, you're more likely to eat a lot of fresh fish.
Hello, and welcome back to the Traveler's Journal. I'm your host,
Welcome to Travel Today, the reality TV show / talk show where we talk about all different places of the world. So the next landscape that we have in Iceland is the Blue Lagoon. This is a really trendy spot to go to right now. Everybody knows the Blue Lagoon? Oh yes, I've been to the Blue Lagoon many times. And well, it's very therapeutic. It's good for the skin.
So I heard that you guys want to go to Croatia. Yes. Let me tell you, Croatia is a beautiful country. So just as we get started, what are maybe some important things that you need to see when we want to succeed in the country? Well, every time I'm a big traveler, and every time we go to a country, I love to try other countries' foods that they're famous for. So whenever we go to Croatia, I really want to know what food they should try.
Thank you for letting us share just a small piece of one project that we are working on in 5th grade.
That was really, really good. I mean, you guys- honestly, that does not, I would not have thought that was, what grade are you guys in, you said? 5th grade. I would not have thought that was a 5th grade project. That was really professional, really well done. That was great.
Thank you.
I think you guys are probably going to be in the plays at Hauser, it looks like, next year. You guys are really good.
Mr. Mason Scouting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for coming out. We enjoyed that. It was really
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They were too much.
Oh, that's great.
I think gone are doing things on like poster board. And just-
Yeah, I know. A little bit different than my 5th grade
They all had
project.
fun doing it too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And doing it in groups like that.
Hopefully some of the kids are still doing the volcanoes with the acid and all
Yeah, the
that.
baking soda.
Have to have that.
Baking soda.
Baking soda, yeah.
All right, I will continue on with the superintendent's report. I should plan the agenda better because my next topic is the Riverside Village update on intersection improvements, which doesn't quite follow from that. But actually, I did want to share that just this week, the village has started with their intersection improvements over on the Aiken side, Nuttall, Long Common, where all those areas come together. And that was an area that is, we had shared with the police department that we were concerned, and they had come over and done some extra analysis of that space, and now they have put those in crosswalk student crossing signs. I think they have some other anticipated improvements to make, and just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that the village has moved forward on this, and obviously no additional cost to the school district.
I mean, that's really, I'm glad the village did that. That's a great thing they did that, because those were tricky crosswalks. As Sherry knows, her daughter was struck in one of them, and I think another child was hit just last year, right? Isn't that right?
Yes, right. So we've gone to them a couple times and asked for some additional support.
Great that they
This
moved
has
on
been
that
some-
very quickly.
some
Yeah,
great action.
the in-crosswalk, I mean, I live right there, and the in-crosswalk, I don't know if they brought it, we don't have anyone here today from the village, right?
Right.
That's a huge improvement, just because it's right in front of your face when you're driving. Most of the incidents that I saw took place in the daytimes. I'm not sure, I mean, the lighting's okay, it's a good idea, I'm not sure if that's our main focus, but the signage is a huge improvement, and the crossing guard is amazing there, and so any support we can give her is awesome, so.
I will share that certainly, and they'll certainly know that from the public meeting. The other thing I wanted to, as you know, it's always my goal to keep this group and the public up to date on the facility advisory committee process. So I shared our agenda from March 13th, and at that particular meeting, we looked at some scaled down ideas for both Hollywood and Blythe. We're not going to have a robust discussion about that tonight. That's really going to go back to Facilities Advisory. We'll continue to talk about that at our next Committee of the Whole meeting, so we know that obviously with some modified plans are also some modified costs. So I just wanted to just really bring it up as a continuation of our shared work on that, and really it's more to follow on that. The other thing related to facilities is the RFQ, our goal for separation of play and parking on the Central Hauser campus, and looking specifically at some engineering/landscape architect firms that came up with proposals, and Joel Marhold joined us in looking at those, and Jim has our response on that.
So we interviewed 3 firms, DeWalt Hamilton, Kimley Horn, and KLOA, and the subcommittee recommended that we move forward with DeWalt Hamilton. So I informed the vendors on the choice, and we need to set up a meeting with DeWalt Hamilton and start asking them to put together a proposal on examining this campus here, the parking and play outside. So that's the next step with the RFQ.
Right. And then there's one other thing on the superintendent's report about very important district office signage that you were going to talk about. So are there any questions about the RFQ, about the working with Walton Hamilton?
They're going to give us a price on what that.
Yeah, so they'll just come back with a proposal to do some design work, and that's where we'll start, and then we'll determine what our next steps might be.
They all 3 came prepared, and they had good suggestions on things that they thought were important to look at, and we had a good discussion on how each one presented and who we thought was going to do the best for our district, and all of them would have done a good job, but one stood out.
So they'll come back with a lump sum proposal? Is that what we anticipate?
I think what we anticipate is something for designing it, and then it would still be similar to all our other facilities project ideas, is that determining, is this work that could be done in stages, is this work that we would do in the short term or the longer term. But it's exciting, I think, to look at some options. We know that it's been challenging to think about, are there configurations that could change sort of how that area is structured back there.
So I included some pictures, I photoshopped what signage could look like at the new district office, and trying to be kind of minimalistic with it, but to have signs that you can see the building from the road, from Harlem and from Quincy, and know that it's the district office, and then using a smaller, older logo on the front door and just listing the hours and the phone number. I think that would help people find the location, and everyone who passes by will know what's there.
I have a question. Is that existing sign up on the higher portion there, is that a backlit sign, or what is it? Do you know?
It would be an aluminum sign attached to the wall. I try to make the background blend in.
Okay, so it's not a lit sign in any way?
Sorry?
It's not a lit sign in any way?
I don't think it's lit.
I don't know, but to be honest, any sign is going to have to go through planning and zoning.
Yes.
Right.
I was wondering. And the sign companies will actually do that as part of their fee for signage as they work on.
Yeah, we're getting 2 quotes based on this, and we can make a decision.
What are we budgeting for this sign? Do you have a budget for this sign?
We would just put it out.
See what the quotes are?
Yeah.
I mean, because nowadays with Google Maps and phones and navigation systems,
right.
I don't know if anyone really needs to see a large sign to know where something is, right? You can just look and type it in your phone or whatever. So I would be hesitant to spend any really significant amount of money on a sign. Just my 2 cents.
Get the numbers and bring them back.
I would agree. I mean, it's just something understated and simple.
Simple, understated.
Minimal.
Another possibility is we could maybe, we have a very good art department with Mr. Singh and the Hauser. Maybe they could design something, or the kids could design something, that would be cheap and sort of interesting, So just
We actually are talking to the art department about maybe bringing some artwork over, just like rotating artwork through it. As you know, one of our goals is to make sure that it looks like a student space.
That's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea.
But I do have a question. The cost of the the sign isn't necessarily the design itself, it's the actual placement. I mean, that's where the most of the, right, of putting it up, right.
Right,
Where
exactly.
did the two design concepts come from? Can you remind me?
So that was part of, sort of in Jim's bringing this forward. So
the
one of the things
Village
that, my understanding is the school district has sort of some different logos that are used in different places. And so we have the 5 schools with the colored doors.
Right.
We have the old water tower.
Right.
And then this, what Jim presented are just some signs that would bring clarity to what the building is. And they could certainly be without the tree or without the water.
Yeah.
But again, that's, I think, something for the board to be aware of. And if there's a strong sense that there is a logo that you all feel from your history with the district that really represents or what should be represented on a sign. What I hear you saying is bring clarity what that building is and how much clarity is needed. Let's look at quotes and costs.
Exactly. I mean, because we bought that building, it was my understanding that it was more move-in ready, and we were not going to spend very much money at all. And that's definitely how I would like to proceed. Usually the cost of things is usually an accumulation of small things. This thing is 10,000. That thing is 10,000. Before you know it, you've done 1,000.
I would prefer just the words rather than the extra drawings, but maybe that's just my personal preference, just to keep it minimal. But the other board members can say anything.
I'll get vendors to tell us, but my guess is these two signs, both sides up high, and the door might be $1,500. So just to give you an idea.
I like the door one though. I think that's great.
I definitely think there needs to be a sign though, because it is a very, I think that intersection is a little bit confusing. I really, I have no opinion on what the sign, as long as it says Riverside Public Schools or Riverside School District, I don't care what it looks like. Just because I'm not a designer.
I'm definitely in agreement with Linda there. I believe it needs to have a sign. As much as we all use GPS and phones these days, I agree it is. It's a public building, it needs to be clear. I guess along similar lines, though, I wonder about, do we have any plans for, the signage that was there for a long time? Oftentimes you'll see a building as old signs are removed. There's like a halo effect for previous.
Well, that's why I was hoping to put a board that would cover the whole spot.
I'm not even speaking of that. I'm speaking of the wording that's across the side of the building that faces Harlem.
Yeah.
It still says Texas Petroleum.
Yeah, Bill actually had an idea of using just some wood and painting it the same as the building to cover it. So an in-house project on
Yeah, we don't
that.
need a halo.
Obviously, would you take the letters that are in our name?
Rearrange them?
Yeah.
Scramble? Okay.
It looked great.
I think you got enough to go forward on, right, Jim?
Yeah,
Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
And that is it, Superintendent's
All right, so thanks, Martha. So next we have the consent agenda. At this point, would the board secretary like to read the consent agenda?
Yes. Tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the previous meetings of the closed session on February 20th, the regular business meeting on February 20th, the closed session on March 6th, and the corresponding special meeting on March 6th, the closed session on March 18th. We also have the personnel report, the payables pre-lists from February 28th, March 20th, and then the LADC classroom lease for 2019 to 2020.
Thanks, Joel. At this point, are there any items that anyone would like taken off of the consent agenda for further discussion?
Can we remove the minutes of the special meeting from March 6th?
Okay, minutes of the special meeting from March 6th. Okay, anything else? If nothing else, then is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of the minutes of the special meeting from March 6th?
So moved.
Second.
Marjorie, please call the roll.
Mr. Bersani?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Ms. Kleiber?
Aye.
Mr. Regan?
Aye.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thanks, Margie. And Dan, what was your question about that?
I just noticed and I noticed it going out the door tonight, otherwise I would have reached out earlier. It notes that I was absent from this meeting. I think I was late maybe, but I was present at the meeting, so it should be noted on there
It does
somewhere.
say that you arrived.
I think the special, or the closed session.
33.
It's closed session, didn't it? Oh, okay, maybe I missed that part.
Is that the right part I'm looking at? Arrived at 6:33, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Dan is correct. The regular meeting.
It was the regular
special
Right,
meeting.
right, yeah, it's the closed session
closed
mentions that I got there.
And not the
But the
regular
regular
meeting, not the
doesn't.
regular meeting as he was missing.
Oh, because there's two March 6th.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So we'll just, I guess, can we just amend that now, or do we bring that back? What's the?
You can approve it as amended.
You can approve it as amended.
Okay, so we will amend it to show that Mr. Hunt was present at that meeting. So then, is there a motion to approve this revised minutes of the special meeting showing Mr. Hunt was present?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, please call the roll.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Regan?
Aye.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Ms. Kleiber?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thanks, Margie. So next up we have, somehow it's gotten the, this, how do you know that thing? Okay. So next up we have a resolution for honorable dismissal. At this point, is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve the resolution of honorable dismissal for the teachers named in the resolution as presented? So those teachers would be Demetra Shinganos and
Jessica Canigo?
Jessica Camego. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Do you want to say anything about this, Martha, or the?
No, I mean, one was filling a one-year temporary position, and the other is in our kite intervention program. It would be our hope to bring her back. It's just that's a hard one to anticipate enrollment, and so we've done that where we've honorably dismissed, and then.
So you kind of wait for the student enrollment?
Well,
before you-
we already have 2 half-time kite teachers. It's whether or not we need the third half-time.
okay.
So we know we will run the kite program.
But
It's just
maybe not
that
3
the third,
separate.
we just need to be cautious
And
about.
you still have kindergarten registrations
Yeah.
happening. So that makes sense.
So, Marcia, please call the roll.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Ms. Kleiber?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Regan?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thanks, Margie. At this point, we next come to the approval for the Director of Teaching and Learning contract. At this point, is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve the 2019-2020 contract for the Director of Teaching and Learning as presented?
So moved.
Second.
So is there any discussion about this item? Any discussion?
I had something I'd like to read. So I wrote it just so I would make sure I said what I wanted to say. Due to gaps in our interview process, I will be a dissent vote. I'm interested in promoting our own achievement growth through those with background in content area expertise and pedagogy from districts with upward trending achievement, similar to our own. Now, saying that, I would also like to note some of the things I loved hearing from Angela. She, in the interview, really committed to being visible, teacher voice, building relationships with staff. Her view that assessment is more than a unit test and making sure we pre-assess every child to know where they are when they start was amazing and amazingly appropriate. And she had such energy, so I really look forward to working with her. I'm excited, and I'm excited to learn from her.
Thanks, Sherry. Any other comments? I have a couple of remarks to follow on to Sherry's. This is a very important position. This is probably the most important position in the district, other than the superintendent. It has a direct effect on all of our students. And so I've given a lot of thought to my vote, and I find myself in a very uncomfortable position because I am unpersuaded. Well, I think in every single vote that we've had in the past on an important position, I have followed the recommendations of the superintendent, for whom I have a great deal of respect. But in this case, I find myself unpersuaded, and the reason is basically is nothing to do with the candidate, who I think has a very strong resume, has a very been a principal at Oak Park for 13 years, and done a very good job as far as I can tell. It really has to do with the kind of experience that I believe this position requires, given where we are in our district right now. And specifically, the kind of experience that I'm talking about is working in a high-performing district that has a record of increasing student achievement. And the reason I say that is I just want to think about our own district and what's happened over the last 4 years. And over the last 4 years, our students have had really remarkable progress in their academics. And just measured by the PARC test, that's sort of our state standard. That's the one that we look at. And just to make a couple remarks on that. Although the PARC test has went for 4 years, we've had three subsequent years of data, and in those 4 years, our English, the percent of students who meet or exceed expectations in English has gone from 61% to 69%. The percent who meet or exceed in math has gone from 53 to 62%, which are really significant gains. And the aggregate numbers don't really tell the whole story, because if you dig deeper below these numbers, what you'll see is the gains are really broad-based. We saw gains in every single demographic group for which the state collects data. Just to give two examples of many ways that you can look at the data, but just to give two examples, roughly a third of our students are Hispanic, and in this demographic, the English test percent who meet or exceed went from 47% to 56% over the last 3 years. In math, this group went from 36% to 46% meeting or exceeding expectations. So really amazing gains for this demographic cohort. At the same time, there's another category which is low income on the state report card, and we have 15% of our students are low income. I think in Oak Park it's a little bit higher, 18%, but very similar. In English, this group went from 29% to 48% that are meeting or exceeding. In math, it went from 20 to 35%. So the gains are quite large, and they're broad-based, considering the short period of time we're talking about, a 3-year period. My favorite example in this case, I can't resist mentioning this, is Central School. In Central School, in 2015, the achievement gap between low-income and non-low-income students was 45%. There's a massive difference in the test results for these two groups. Last year, this achievement gap declined to 5%. 5%. 73% of the low-income students were meeting expectations in English. 78% of the non-low-income students. That's an amazing, from 45 to 5%. It's an amazing gain. So all of these results are testament to the hard work of our excellent administrators. I'll mention Dr. Brownlow, who was our previous or our current director of curriculum, our principals, our 5 principals, Ms. Shaw, Martha, and the rest of her team, and especially the hard work of our excellent and dedicated teachers who have had, again, over the last 4 years to master a ton of new curriculum, a ton of new instructional methodologies, and they've done a wonderful job of that. And we see real results in our test scores. So the district and the community should be extremely proud of what the district has accomplished and what our staff has accomplished over the last 3 or 4 years. But at the same time, I want to emphasize that these gains are not automatic. For example, we can contrast the experience of District 97, Oak Park, which in many ways has been the exact opposite over the last 3 years. Over the last 3 years, the percentage of students in District 97 who met or exceeded expectations have declined by large margins. Our numbers have gone up, their numbers have gone down year on year over 3 years. For example, in English, the percentage who met or exceeded expectations went from 68% to 42%. In math, it went from 49% to 41%. So these are very large declines in a short period of time. And just like in our case, where we saw broad gains across all of the demographic groups, in Oak Park, we saw broad declines in all the demographic groups. So this is not a question of of a change in demographics. It's pretty much across the board. Therefore, what you know, given that this district where the candidate has been working for her last 13 years as a principal is underperforming, what that means to me is that she does not have direct firsthand experience in a district which is succeeding in basically raising student achievement on the metrics the state has given us. And again, that's no reflection on her. That I'm not saying that she is responsible for the performance of the district. That would be totally impossible. But it does mean that you know, she does not have the experience of working in a district which is succeeding, and I think we need that kind of experience. So everything I'm talking about here is with regard to hiring a senior administrator. The candidate is a very senior administrator. If we're hiring a more junior person, obviously the criteria would be different, but I think with a senior administrator, we have to look at the track record of the person at their school and the track record of their district. And so for me, you know, it comes down to this experience, and that's why I am going to vote against. And again, it's no reflection on the candidate, who I think has a strong resume in general. It just, I think she does not have this kind of experience, the kind of experience that I think we require in this role. So with that said, is there any further comment?
You know, I'd like to comment as well. I mean, I know there's a lot that's been going on here, and in regards to this, and I mean, I appreciate Dr. Bromlow's work and basically entire district work. I mean, all the progress we've made in this district is a team effort. I mean, and I very much appreciate it. No offense to Angela Dozell, I'm sorry to see you leaving, Dr. Bromlow. So, but there's also no doubt in my mind that Ms. Dozell is going to fulfill those roles and continue to lead us through to the next level. And I trust that this candidate, while I did not interview her, I trust the people that we have on staff here to do what is right, and I mean to pick a qualified candidate to fulfill this role. And so I'm excited for her to start. I'm looking forward to her to start. And I mean, and we do hear a lot about Oak Park and like how Oak Park might not be doing as well as we are, and I can appreciate that. But also, the same token, there's a lot to be said in learning what goes on in districts that might not be doing well. There's a lot to be said that, you know, sometimes they say failure is better than success because you actually learn from that. And so, just because of what happened in Oak Park, I'm not concerned, because I do think we're in a good position, and I'm looking forward to the future of what we can do here.
Thanks, Dave. Any other comments?
I didn't prepare a statement, but I feel like I should have.
I didn't either, Rich, though.
It was very well said. Well said.
It was very well said.
Very well said.
I mean, I just want to add my vote of confidence to the candidate here. I trust the process that occurred here, and we're looking forward to really great things. If you didn't gather by the last few minutes, you're in a situation where you have a very engaged board, so that can be a good thing. That can be a good thing.
Any other comments? If not, then Margie, please call the roll.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Regan?
Aye.
Ms. Kleiber?
No.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhold?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
No?
Motion
Thanks,
carried.
Margie. So with that, I would like to be the first person to welcome Ms. Dozell, and I promise that the entire board will be behind you, we will work with you, and we will support you in your efforts to raise the standards here in District 96 and for our students. So we will have 100% support. And so thank you very much for coming, and I don't know if...
I was just going to say, you know, I mean, it's my great pleasure to recommend Angela Dozell for this position and for Director of Teaching and Learning here, and she is our recommended candidate for the position. We had a very rigorous interview process, and we had the opportunity to meet many, many highly qualified candidates, and consistently throughout this process, Ms. Dozell has demonstrated a student-centered approach to moving student learning forward, and that is what we're all about. And I am confident that she has the collaborative leadership skills to really move our district forward in the many aspects of student learning that we focus on every single day, and that includes academic achievement as well as social emotional growth for our students. So I'm thrilled, I'm excited. I know our team, our very talented team, is really excited to have Angela join us, and I know she will enhance our current work and continue to move us forward. So I want to also say welcome.
And did
Shake
did you?
hands.
Yeah, I didn't want to hurt you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. We will Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's great to meet you too. I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay.
Stop running, Sherry. Slow down, please.
All right.
Do you want to say anything?
Did yeah? So I don't know if Ms. Dolezal, would you like to say anything, or?
Angela, do you want to say a few words? Do you want? So you have to come to a microphone here, and it doesn't sound like it's a microphone. It doesn't do anything. You just speak into it. And it goes into the recording.
I really just want to say thank you very much. I am very excited about the opportunity to work in, as you said, a high-performing school district. Coming from Oak Park, I've spent 15 years to teaching, 13 as an administrator in Oak Park, and it's hard to leave home. My kids are actually students at Longfellow, where I'm the principal, so conversations at home have been a little bit rough, especially with the younger one, because of change. But all the opportunities that are ahead of me, I'm very excited about. I'm excited to work with all of you as well as with the leadership team. Over the course of the interview process, meeting the different members of the leadership team as well as the staff, it just further informed my decision, made me know that I really am coming into a great family, a great network, and I look forward to bringing my skills and my knowledge to the table and working collaboratively with the hard work that has been happening in this district and working to continue to move this district forward in great, unimaginable ways. So thank you, everybody. I look forward to working with everybody on the board, with everyone on the leadership team, and I'm excited to start the transition process and just jump right in. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right. Next item of business is let's see here. Riverside Educational Council. Do we have any comments from the Riverside Educational Council? No comments. Next we have board member comments. First up is education. Sherry, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I'll just recap what we talked about at the COW. Is that okay? So there were a few proposals that we heard about, and they're actually pretty exciting. Ms. Brownlow and some of the staff and Kelly King gave kind of an overview of something called Define STEM, which has been piloting here. And I think it's going to be really awesome for our teachers to use. I'm very excited, and I appreciate Meryl giving us a chance to pilot and just check it out before we made a commitment. But I think it'll help our teachers to organize the way that they teach in an interactive way, but also working with standards. And so you can learn more about that if you watch that. Also, we're talking about an opportunity to kind of double advance those that need extra enrichment or advancement, especially in math, because apparently there is an awesome, amazing group of 7th graders that are ready to move on in their content. And so I really appreciate that the staff and the administration is willing to just let these kids go where they need to go and to move on. Because sometimes you just say, well, you're good enough, you're doing well as an advanced person, and that's enough. So I really appreciate that they're working on giving these kids a place to move into some really complicated algebra as 7th graders and 8th graders. So it's awesome. Maybe even get into a little geometry, you never know. So those were some of the main pieces that we talked about. Let me know if I forget anything.
And we had the proposal that's also on the agenda tonight for the EL.
Oh, for the EL, yes,
The increase in the EL.
Yes, for the extra person, right.
Sure. Policy, Dan, do you have any updates on policy?
It's been a long dry spell for the policy committee, but sitting in front of me tonight.
So next meeting.
So I'm going on spring break vacation next week, so it's good to see that I'll have some reading material. So for the fans of the policy committee, no worries, we will have some further policies to discuss soon.
All right, thanks, Dan. Rich,
We'll prepare
anything on
ourselves.
finance?
I'd just like to add that with respect to finance, it's been a pleasure as my time is drawing to an end here. It's been a pleasure to work with Mr. Fitton. He probably gets one too many phone calls from me, but you guys should all know that I have great confidence in what he's done here under Martha's leadership, and I know he's going to do fantastic things here with respect to finance and cost controls and budgeting. So you've done fantastic work.
You still have some time left.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Checked out. Get 3 more meetings.
Rich is never showing up again.
All right, thanks, Rich. Well said. Next, we move on to old business. First item of old business is the defined STEM adoption. It's an action item. Is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve the defined STEM adoption as presented?
So moved. Second.
Martha, would you maybe just like to remind people in the audience and ourselves exactly what this recommendation is?
Sure, and actually, do you want to hear from Dr. Brownlow? She can give you a quick update, a recap from last meeting.
Hi, everybody. Just to remind you, Define STEM, as Mrs. Kleiber just started to talk about, is a platform that our teachers will have access to that will actually create an interdisciplinary opportunity to marry standards to instruction. It will also become the hub for where we can place our science, our new NGSS science units at K through 5, which will not only allow us to assess the students in relationship to the standards in science, but we will also be able to integrate the English language arts and the mathematics. And they also now have loaded the social studies science, or social science standards in there as well, the new science standards there. So it's going to serve a multitude of purposes, both on the assessment end as well as on the instructional end, and will also allow us to customize our units to the rigor that we would expect for our students here in District 96.
All right, thanks, Dr. Brownlow. Any questions about this? And this was covered entirely by a grant, right, for the first 3 years, right? Any questions or comments? If not, Marjorie, please call the roll.
Mr. Regan?
Aye.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Bersadi?
Aye.
Ms. Kleiber? Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thanks, Margie. Next item is the 1/2 full-time equivalent for the EL bilingual staffing recommendation. At this point, is there a motion for the Board of Education to approve the staffing recommendation for the addition of 1/2 FTE for the EL bilingual program as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Martha, you just want to say a few words just to...
I will let
hear
Dr. Brownlow speak on that one also. There's a bit of a...
There's a little jigsaw puzzle we're doing. So you heard about the increase in enrollment at the committee of the whole meeting, but in addition to that, we know that the incoming 6th grade class to Hauser is not quite the same size as the outgoing 8th grade class, and we're able to manipulate some of the instruction with our 8th grade team and rearrange some Spanish instruction, foreign language instruction within our current staff. So you also had on your consent agenda the movement of a Spanish teacher into the receptionist position at Hauser, and we will not have to replace 0.5 of that Spanish. We're going to reallocate half of that Spanish back into the system. So Mrs. Janik, who taught Spanish in the past, will be teaching ELA in Spanish again next year. So it will offset the FTE, so it really won't be an overall increase for Hauser, but we do need the 0.5 in our EL department instead.
Thank you, Dr. Brownlow.
So I have a question. Since this is an offset expense, is this really a voting item?
That's a good question.
Because it's not budget additive.
Right,
so
it's not
why-
truly FTE increase, it's position.
I think we had it on here, it's not really an increase, but because we're not at the staffing place yet and we want to get this posted, we wanted to bring it forward. So I don't know.
Certainly it doesn't hurt to vote, though. I mean,
No, it certainly doesn't hurt to.
I mean, if I brought it forward with the staffing proposal at the same time, you would have seen the document.
Right. And actually, Rich, you bring up a very good point, and your compliments to Mr. Fitton, because this is something Mr. Fitton and I have been talking about, is how to provide you all with a we have very detailed the who's who and exactly what they're doing at each building. And really, as a board, what you need to understand is that, but really that more, balcony view on the overall FTE and the modifications and changes each year. So that's really what you get in the audit report, but you get it, well after the fact. So we're looking at ways to bring this information to you in an overall more cohesive way.
We wouldn't have to do it.
But Dr. Brownell's point is also correct. We'd like to get this position posted.
Fair enough. In the interest of full disclosure, it's the right thing to do. I just...
Good point.
Let's vote anyway.
Any other comments? If not, why don't we just vote anyway? Yeah, Mark.
It's fun.
Yeah. And Rich doesn't have much to do.
Voice vote, actually.
Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Ms. Kleiber?
Aye.
Mr. Barsadi?
Aye.
Mr. Marhol?
Aye.
Mr. Regan?
Aye.
Ms. Murphy?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Motion
Thanks,
carried.
Margie. Next item is new business. We have the memorandum of understanding for the Ames project from the architect. This is a draft proposal from the architect, so I don't know if Mr. Fitton, you would like to walk us through the highlights of that and also your analysis of, you also have an analysis of comparable contracts that we've signed in the past with other firms, I believe.
So we included the draft MOU from DLA. I also included documents for comparison, some standards, industry standards, and the last two architects that we've used here at Riverside. The plan is to bring this forward the next two meetings. I have a vote the second meeting out about a month from now. And in the meantime, I want to work with DLA, but the facility committee and our owner's rep to maybe negotiate some changes to the MOU. So at this point, it's more for an information item, get the process started, and next meeting have a little more detail on and maybe some updates to it.
Yeah, so it's intended to be a voting item the next full board meeting, correct?
Right.
So
Okay.
we can discuss it we can have more discussion at the next.
That's
committee of the
absolutely
whole.
right. And Mr. Fitton has made some good progress on this thing. There's still some more to be made, so stay tuned.
I really appreciate the memo about the summary of architect fees and all that information. It really puts gives you a lot of background to what we're seeing, which I don't deal with architects very often, so I really appreciate that.
I agree.
I appreciate that as well. I just had a question. Do they normally do, because I know we ran into this discussion last time, but normally a percentage of the cost, total cost, is that?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, is there any way we can get like a fixed fee in there, or is that?
Well,
because I mean, it's just always a percentage of the cost always makes me nervous when.
Sure. Well, the MOU covers the next phase, which is not the total construction.
Okay.
So I think that wherever the percentage ends up, it's going to be a percentage of 20% of the project. So it's a much smaller number at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come out of that phase, we should have better construction numbers that we could apply a percentage to and maybe generate a fixed fee off of, but I'll have to.
Could you explain that thought some more, Jim, on it's a percentage of 20%?
So this MOU covers the schematic design phase, which is about 20% of.
I know you're going to go back to them, but the scope of services covers schematic design development, construction documents, bidding, and construction phase services.
And one of the things we've talked about is stopping at schematic, because after schematic, we would have a better sense of real costs. So one idea is to modify the MOU, and this really gets more into some of the discussion and some of the things that Jim has been working on.
Kind of looking at this as a draft. Okay. And that be one of the changes we might recommend.
Makes sense.
Because not for you since you saw the email, but I made some critical comments about the fact that professional services in specifically for public work are not generally percentage-based, and they are fixed fee, they are fee-based. And the document that Vistara provided, that's in the back of your packet, that's supposed to be a starting point on what the fee should be. And so that's obviously part of the discussion that facilities and Vistara are going to have with DLA.
Yeah, we discussed your note, Joel. It was very helpful, and you'll probably be a good resource as we continue to make our way through this thing. But definitely, this is just for information right now. And by the next board meeting, we hope to really have it nailed down to something that we can all get behind.
Thank you. And the side comment is that architects certainly would like a percentage-based fee.
It's the truth.
But we're not here to fund that. So thank you for the compliment.
Good. Any other comments on this?
I guess my only comment is not if there's information that Joel has sent, if it's pertinent to the rest of the board, I would, because this conversation I have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, I haven't heard that either.
So I don't know if this is something that at some point can be.
Oh yeah, I mean, Joel, why don't you just forward it to the board? Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
Joel just made some direct comments about.
No, yeah, no, that's no, and I understand that.
Yeah, we weren't in that.
Yeah,
sure, of course.
And Mr. Finn, if you have a different draft version, could you let us know what items were specifically changed so that I can go back and compare? Because I probably won't remember every detail about what you changed unless I see it. Thank you. Or highlight it some way.
Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you, Mr. Fitton. Appreciate that overview. Next up, we have the intergovernmental agreement for the Village of Riverside with the Village of Riverside for the camera relay on the smokestack. Martha, maybe you can just remind us the.
Sure. So we had, as you know, that vote moved forward last meeting, and you had all shared a number of things about access to the buildings, only working with access after school hours, making sure that things like tree trimming were not going to create a problem with the working of their relay device, et cetera. So really, this was put together by our attorney, really looking at the concerns that a lot of you had expressed about this. So this is a draft of an intergovernmental agreement that we would look at potentially as an action item next month at our next meeting. So if people want to take a look at it, if the board members would take a look at it, and if you see any areas of concern or recommendations for any edits, please let me know.
I just noticed one thing, and I'm not sure what standard procedure for these agreements, but on page 2 where it says installation of device, it says that we will grant them a license for 10 years. I'm just wondering where that number came from. That seems like a long time to me.
Typical. I think it's what our attorney recommended. That's sort of more standard.
Yeah,
so.
I understand. I might suggest, since this is kind of a new territory, that it be less than that, but I don't know how everyone else feels. It seemed long to me for something that's never been.
Yeah, I mean.
And I don't know what the village's plan is either. That's part of why I'm wondering. I feel like this is a little bit backwards because we're helping them get started on what they haven't started yet. So I don't know what their plans are. So 10 years to me feels a little bit premature.
That's a good point. Yeah, good point. Okay.
Well, would it make sense then to have a severance clause, or to dismiss after so many days, 30 days or something like that?
So I guess the way I'm looking at this is
Or maybe to revisit every year?
the way I sort of view this is that we're technically leasing them space on our building. So this isn't, I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but it's technically at least because we're letting them use our property for their services.
I mean, if they want to terminate it sooner, if we want to terminate it sooner, there is an option for doing that. But
Or
it's
even
sort of
just a revisit of the agreement yearly or something where we could take a look at what we've agreed to. Because words change and, depending on who's maintaining the building, that could change.
I do recall that from the debate that we had about this, that it at least felt to me at that point that this board felt that this was something that we should review on a at least annual or semi-annual basis, just to confirm the use and the impact on the school, and not agree to something. This was something that I supported under those terms, that we could review it on a renewable basis.
Once a year, things about that.
So I think we also made the determination that we would review our other intergovernmental agreements with the villages. So maybe it's something that can just be
just done annually.
And I guess the question, the sort of technical question in that is, I do have in our board notes that we would review these annually, but do you want to redo your IGA annual?
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, yeah. So that would be, do you put a longer time, but know that there's going to be a review process, but not necessarily.
Like stay with 10 years, knowing there's a review process.
But if having a 10-year agreement here and reviewing it annually only means something if you have a severability clause. That's right, which is not in this agreement.
So we need to add something like that, sounds like.
There are a couple other things that I wanted to address here too. It's like also in section 2 on page 2, it says that the village needs to give us 24 hours, not less than 24 hours for work notice. It's basically they're giving us notice. I say they need 24 hours. I'd like to make sure that we give them approval to come on site, not just notice, because if they gave us 24 hours and then show up.
Right, notice, you're saying notice is different than approval?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing that I wanted to, there's nothing in here, is that if we decide if we need to do work on our roof or on our building, that we have the right to do it and they have to maintain it or move it according to it. We just need to maintain our structure, and that there's nothing in here saying that we can't, like, and obviously I don't foresee this, but if we had to take the chimney down for some reason or something like that,
right,
we need to have full control over the facilities, and if that.
Right, even though it's a minor piece, if we had to take it out and it was disabled.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Right, I see what you're saying.
Any other thoughts on this intergovernmental agreement on this topic? So it sounds like, Martha, you'll get some revisions there in these counts, and then we can talk about that next time. Okay. Thank you for pursuing that. Next item is the long-range facility plan, additional considerations for community engagement. I know we talked a little bit, I think, last time about possible town hall kind of stuff.
Right. So this is just a discussion item, and I guess particularly for Linda and Rich, one of the conversations we've had, we've been using our website and using some of our pushed out communications to make sure that people are up to date, that people have an opportunity to give us additional feedback through some sort of small scale surveys. But we also, we do want to engage the community, and I think this is a question for the board, is sort of that right timing issue. We've been engaging them through hopefully people tuning into our board process, and as I said, posting things, et cetera, reaching out, talking to our parent leadership team, our PTAs and PTOs. But I guess just to get some idea from board members on what your thoughts are about more community engagement. Talking right now, we're really kind of very much in the process. We haven't really made a final decision about the amount of financial spend. We're still looking at some modifications to the projects. Certainly sharing with the community where we are in the process is one idea and one option, or is there a greater sense of bringing it to a clearer point in the process and then sharing? So just again, gathering some of your thoughts and feedback on what you would expect or prefer in regard to community engagement.
I think minimum for me, I really appreciate the village news flashes that come to my email. Like, there'll be police issue, it might just be the trustee meeting is canceled. There are a whole bunch of different range of issues. So even if it's just an update on the process, I think that route reaches a lot of people who don't have kids, who have kids, so you'll be able to engage. Now, you could also announce it down hall if you wanted to, but for me, that's kind of a minimum place to spread awareness.
I kind of like the idea of where we're at in the process now. We're still kind of searching and iterating, going through ideas. I don't think it could hurt to have just a hour-long town hall one night where, the whole board doesn't have to be present. Not a special meeting, just where Martha, a few key players are here just for questions.
I think that's a great idea. I think, something that Ben Sells, I think, did. I think that one of the PTO presidents proposed something exactly like that. I think it's a fantastic idea. That way,
and it's not like a presentation. We're preparing ideas. We're like, if you have questions about the facility plans that have been shared with you, please come ask questions now. I don't think a presentation is necessary.
Nothing can go wrong with people having a chance to ask questions.
And 2 people might show up, or,
And to give
I think
people
it's,
a chance to talk about like the budgetary impacts, all that, how much money,
yeah. But I don't think it's one of those things where we present a whole thing and it's 40 minutes of presentation,
No,
and do you have
I
any
don't
questions?
think-
I think it's literally like,
I don't think the community would like that, actually. I think that
No, I don't
question
think-
answer town hall approach, I think.
because
is
you've
more
been sharing that
appropriate.
via email, we've been transparent about the process. Now, if people have questions, I think it's great to have an opportunity just to come ask.
maybe
The different ideas have been out there and
Yeah,
planned for,
yeah.
so people can comment on those.
So maybe just set something up literally at the town hall, maybe, and just say, hey, we're gonna have a town hall meeting on a certain date, and
A Q&A, just, no formal presentation.
And really, I'd probably take a very pragmatic approach about looking at dates that are available on our calendar, where
Yeah.
there aren't other big district events and that kind of thing going on as we head into spring.
Because as we're still kind of, I think the Ames, the Ames thing is one thing, but as we're still kind of like going through iterations of other ideas for other, solutions, I think it would be a great time for somebody to, maybe they have this brilliant idea that none of us have thought of, or maybe they have concerns that we haven't thought of, or,
Q&A is good, and then I think to Sherry's point, if we can get onto the village's e-blast, that covers a greater percentage of our total taxpayers as well.
Yeah.
So
We've talked about that in the past, haven't we?
We have. I haven't seen us do it that much.
There've been some.
I know. I think
It's not an automatic that they just let us in on their
Okay. Well,
Even
with
when you get your water bill, there's always like a newsletter.
the problem we've also encountered is that it will only cover Riverside.
True,
It doesn't cover
true.
Brookfield, doesn't cover North Riverside.
You're right.
People might be, feeling left out. if we
Right.
didn't-
Well, maybe we could do it
we
separate.
could ask the other villages
Do that
to
too, yeah.
include a blurb.
A blurb,
Just
just
it's
a
a piece
blurb
of
somewhere.
communication.
You do that?
Right, it doesn't have to take over their feed.
I'll be honest, I still read the newsletter that comes with my water bill. I really do.
So oftentimes you-
Yeah, I don't know if that totally like dates
Well,
me.
and that's one of the things we looked into it, and we can continue that. Like, the utilities may allow you to put like a small flyer in the utility bills. So
Right.
there are different ways to continue to think about ways to reach the full community. It's always a challenge for school districts. Is to reach the non-school districts.
Right,
Yes.
right.
That's
I mean,
Sounds
not
like
to
then,
sound, not to sound old-fashioned, but what about like the landmark? Maybe there's something
That's
more.
always a good idea too.
Landmark,
Yeah.
or even, Facebook. I know there's a Riverside group that's well attended. I imagine there are similar groups for North Riverside.
There are.
Right.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
We also talked about doing a lot of times school districts will do the 7 p.m. town hall, but also maybe offering like a 8 a.m. or a 9 a.m. coffee, coffee with the superintendent type thing. I am more than happy to talk with anybody who's interested in listening in terms of where we are in our process. But certainly want to hear from you that, as Linda said, we're in this iterative process. We're not done, right? We don't have a plan where we're saying, this is our plan, what do you think? It's really, here's where we are in the process. What do you think about where we are in terms of, what are your
I think
questions?
it's an opportune time to get feedback.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah, so it sounds like we have a consensus then.
Sure, thank you for that feedback.
All right, the next item is the last item on the agenda is the June Board of Education meeting date considerations.
Right. So, just a couple thoughts. So we, Jeff and I had talked about the possibility of canceling the regularly scheduled June meeting. Last year, if you recall, we used the June cow as a goal setting. And so I know it's also best with all of you as having very busy lives with responsibilities beyond board duties, using meetings that are already on the calendar. So one idea, as Margie has put together here, is to continue with our committee of the whole meeting on June 5th. The other idea is then to sort of add an additional regular board meeting on the 12th, or not have it on the 5th and combine everything on the 12th. Or the idea is just cancel the June 19th and move to a regular board meeting on the 26th. So the question really becomes having a cow and regular board meeting in June or combining them. But either way, probably making a modification to the calendar.
What do you anticipate for necessary presentations? I mean, do you feel like you need the cow?
Well, we used the cow last time to do board goal setting.
Yeah.
So we kind of tried to, we held off on other presentations.
Right, because it's that time of year.
Yeah. And, there's often hiring decisions, right? So we want to get personnel reports approved in June. It's often a time when we're hiring new staff. I think this is something, as I think about it in my third year, certainly looking at the summer schedules and what makes sense for the board. absolutely, Sherry, to get the work done that we need to get done, but also to carve out some time for board conversation, sort of looking at this year and looking ahead to the next year, I think is always a valuable opportunity.
Can you remind me why we're canceling the night?
Jeff and I are both out of town. We're being very pragmatic here. So that's one. You know, you can hold a meeting without us. So, but that's one thing that prompted that.
I think without you would be a difficult feat.
Linda will just take care of everything.
Oh, no, at that point.
I'm just teasing. We have a new board.
It is after our reorganization meeting,
yes.
right?
We have a new board.
Yeah, if you're not going to be here, Martha, we shouldn't have a meeting. No. I agree with that.
What does it? It sounds like we can get by with one meeting, right? We don't need to have 2 meetings, right? It sounds like we're just.
I think we could.
Right,
I think we could.
I'm okay with it combined as long as nothing major comes up.
So maybe either keep the committee of the whole and make that everything.
That would be my preference, that we stick with the previously defined date on the
June
5th
5th.
and just make it.
Are there questions about the payables pre-list and all that stuff? I mean, it's because we oftentimes don't have to July committee of the whole. We oftentimes, the next regular business meeting we probably would have would be the middle of July, right? Is that too long a lag or not?
Do you see any problem with that, Mr. Fitton? And of course, he hasn't been here. You started last year, July 1st. So in terms of payables, that kind of thing, board approval.
No, we'll work around it.
Okay.
We'll be okay.
So then to sound like, just keep June 5th meeting and cancel the June 19th and not worry about the other 2 dates?
Are we still going to do a goal setting at some point?
I think so.
Or is that something we need to wait until the new board is established?
I think we need to find out when the new person's available.
But I still recommend that we do that.
Yeah,
Sure.
no, I definitely.
I think you guys should have 3 or 4 meetings.
I heard Triton has one every other day in June.
I vote for more meetings.
So right now we'll hold June 5th with the idea being that it'll be a special meeting. It might be a meeting where we have to do any,
We need to have a community member committee here give us a presentation.
We're going to save June 5th, Rich.
All right, so with that, thanks Martha for that.
Can someone just do me personally a favor and just send that out to me so I can get that on before I
Sure.
mix up the date?
Assume it's the June 5th, and that's what's
Assume it's
on
the
your already like rotating calendar.
Gotcha.
So it's Joel, to your point, it doesn't change dates that hopefully you already have on your calendars.
All right, are there any more comments? If not, is there any public comment? No public comment, then future meeting dates are April 3rd, maybe the whole being 7 p.m. at Ames. April 17th, regular business meeting, 7 p.m. at Hauser. April 30th, the biennial organizational meeting at 7 p.m. here in Hauser. So if there's no further business,